if you've been keeping up with the headlines lately, you might have noticed a surge of betting scandals that is hitting the sports world. The NBA recently requested phones and documents from multiple teams amid their investigation into an illegal gambling scheme. So 2 MLB pitchers have been implicated in a pitch rigging scheme, and they are facing 65 years in prison. But all the while, leagues like the NFL have actually signed multi-year deals with gambling apps.
And with the rise of gambling comes, of course, a rise in addiction. So here to talk about this issue is Nigel Turner, a longtime researcher in the field of gambling studies at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Nigel, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is a really important topic, but I guess what's the difference between somebody who just enjoys it, a little occasional gambling for fun, and at what point does it become an addiction?
Well, basically, it becomes a problem when you start to bet money that you can't afford to lose. Now, it varies in how severe it is. So, to some people, $1,000 is a huge amount of money, but then some people will gamble away hundreds of thousands of dollars, get second mortgages. So how severe, it varies in terms of how severe it can be.
So we tend to hear about addictions to substances. People talk a lot about them more often, I think, than gambling.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea of the psychology behind this particular addiction?
It's actually has a lot of overlap with drugs and alcohol. 2 of the primary risk factors are being impulsive by nature. So people who crave excitement and thrills, whether it's a high from a drug or the thrill of gambling. So that's one factor. Another is people who are unhappy with their lives. Either they're stressed or depressed and they want to escape. Now, gambling has a particular hook there because theoretically, if you win, you could escape from your life. But that is extremely unlikely to happen.
Very good point. Listen, you've been researching in gambling and addiction for decades. There's a lot that's been changing recently because of gambling apps, et cetera. What do you see as the most significant shift right now?
Well, 20 years ago, our primary concern was slot machines because they made up over 80% of the clients who we're seeing in treatment. Now it's shifted to online gambling, and it's much more diverse in terms of what they're gambling on. So slot machines are still a big thing online. Table games are coming out more often now than they used to. And of course, there's sports betting. Around 30% of people who have problems with online gambling are betting on sports.
Well, let's keep going with that because as Mel mentioned, the top 2, sports betting among fans has become, I feel like really, really normalized and even encouraged by the leagues themselves through partnerships with gambling platforms. What do you make of this increased emphasis on the connection between sports and gambling?
Well, it has a weird effect on the nature of your enjoyment of the sport because traditionally you would get really excited if your team wins, but now with the gambling, you may get really excited even if they've lost by 5 points because they beat the line. You won your bet. And conversely, you may be really upset because they only won by 5 points and the line was 6.
Right.
There are also micro bets like betting on the next pitch and the next goal, which then changes the nature of what you are watching. You're not watching the game to enjoy the whole experience, but you're focused on specific events.
That's I've never heard it put that way before. That's really interesting. Let's talk about teens for a second because teens, we have discovered, are especially vulnerable to all the advertising that we're seeing for gambling and also then more susceptible to addiction. Can we talk about the prevalence? What is this doing to teens? What are you seeing?
Well, legally, they're not allowed to gamble on these websites, but they do gamble either private bets or maybe their friends run a book. So it does happen. We are concerned mostly because male teens often start, people who become problem gamblers often start in their adolescence. The majority of male problem gamblers started while they were teenagers. So we're concerned about how many people are now taking up this activity before they really have their fully developed cognitive ability to say, hey, this is a way to lose money, not a way to win. And so we're concerned about how this is going to impact their future. Most people will not actually seek treatment until their 20s or 30s or even 40s. And there's a lag because they build up a lot of losses well before they come into treatment, before they start admitting that they have a problem. And they've done a lot of damage to their lives. We'd like actually people to seek help earlier before they've done irreversible financial damage to themselves.
Right.
Now, we're parents of kids who are under the teenage years, but I've even noticed that games, they have this kind of like gambling effect, like they feel like they're already, right? Like it's like, yeah.
Gamified everything.
Gamified,
Yes.
and it feels like slot machines, some of them. So have you found that to be true, and what kind of an impact is that having?
Well, it's something we're concerned about. There are a number of ways in which games today are becoming more and more like gambling games. There is the loot boxes that people will pay money for, and they're not gambling because you don't win something, you don't win money from them, but there are secondary ways of actually cashing in those loot box goodies in some games.
Yeah.
There are social casino games, which are basically casino games that you can play. There's no age restriction. They don't cost you money, or they don't win. You don't win anything back, but they are basically teaching people. They're normalizing. That's a good word. Normalizing gambling.
Yeah.
Let's talk about regulation here. It really sounds like this is screaming for regulation to really curb this before it becomes a problem or full-blown addiction. Where does Canada stand right now? What are the guardrails in place to try to prevent some of this?
Well, every casino site, whether it's online or offline, has a self-exclusion program. So that's something that people should be aware of. They have responsible gambling information on those sites. So in that respect, we've done a good job. We do have some advertising restrictions. We managed to get the government to ban celebrities that appeal to youth from advertising in Ontario. So that's, again, something we feel we've accomplished. But there is very little in the way of restrictions in terms of what do you call it, the loot boxes, and those pre-gambling activities. So that's something that I think really should be looked at in terms of regulation.
We only have about 30 seconds left, but I really want to get to this. If someone who's watching feels like someone in their life has a gambling addiction, knows someone, what do you recommend that they do?
Okay, well, I have put, there is a website that I gave you guys. So, in addition to that.
It is on the screen right now.
Yes, in addition, every province has a helpline. Every province has free counseling services. There is GA, Gamblers Anonymous. They're particularly good at, pressure relief, helping people deal with the debt issues. There's self-exclusion, let's see, treatment, use it. It does work. Doesn't always work the first time, just like smoking, you don't quit. Then you don't always quit the very first time you try, but if you keep trying, you will escape from this addiction.
Yes,
so,
Nigel, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation.
Okay.
I think it's opened a lot of our eyes. Responsiblegambling.org if you or someone you know needs some help.